name is Stephen Pater. I'm a teacher and coach, and I was at the Boston Marathon when the bombs went off in 2013.
Good afternoon, I'm George Stephanopoulos in New York. We're interrupting your program because there have been 2 explosions today at the Boston Marathon. 2 explosions near the finish line just a short while ago.
I am a teacher at George County High School. I coach cross country and tennis. I've been running since I was in high school. The town where we lived in northeast Louisiana, Rayville, Louisiana, it's a nice town, but there's not a lot to do. And running was an outlet for me. And when I started teaching, I coached cross country at Moss Point High School and then got caught up in the basketball program, so I didn't run for several years competitively. When I left the University of Memphis and moved to Lucedale, I was bored out of my mind. You imagine going from Memphis to Lucedale. It was a little bit of a culture shock, and so I found something to occupy my time, which was running. And I've been in Lucedale now almost 15 years. Over that 15 years, I've completed 46 marathons, over 150 half marathons, and goodness only knows how many 5Ks and other races that I've gone to. And now my son has picked up my passion for running, and I'm loving watching him take it and carry it on. Well, Boston is one of the unique races in America. One thing, the most historic race in the world, but you have to qualify. So you have to run a qualifying time in order to get in. I was lucky enough to have a qualifying time and ran in 2011, and through a freak thing with the weather in 2012, I ran a great marathon in Tupelo and qualified again and was lucky enough to get selected for the 2013 Boston. Whenever you can get into Boston, you run Boston. When you get that invitation, you don't turn it down. So off I went, and that's the beginning of that story. The morning started just like anything else. Went to the start line, and in 2011 I tried really hard to get a good time and push myself, but I also realized I'm getting older and it hurts to run that hard to qualify for Boston. So I told myself, okay, well, this time I'm gonna soak it in. I'm gonna enjoy all of the surroundings. I'm gonna take pictures of the monuments along the way, the things that, that stand out to me. I'm gonna high five the kids. I'm gonna stop and enjoy the scenery, so to speak. And so that morning when I started out, instead of taking off at the regular race pace, I held back a little bit and enjoyed the moment, looking out over Fenway and heading down Massachusetts Avenue. The Red Sox fans were filing out of the stadium. They were singing Sweet Caroline. The Sox had won in extra innings, and all of a sudden everything bottlenecked. We thought we heard something, but we didn't know what it was. And then we saw the policemen, and the policemen are very noticeable because they've got on those neon green vests, and they start running toward downtown. And I just thought that was odd when it happened. We were just sort of looking around and what's the problem? Did something happen? And the word was getting through the crowd, something blew up at the finish line. And I said, oh goodness, okay, well, let me text Ms. Pater and let her know that I'm safe. So I texted and said, hey, I'm safe, don't worry about me. Everybody all of a sudden went from the singular goal is the finish line to the singular goal of I've got to help the people around me. The woman next to me, Carol Downing, Carol was worried because explosion at the finish line and her kids were waiting there for her. I said, you know what, come with me. I know my way around the finish line down there. We'll find your daughter. And so she and I took a couple of back streets, and as we got closer to Boylston Street, that's the street where the bombs went off, policeman was yelling to us, disperse, disperse. And of course, being a history teacher, the Boston Massacre, disperse ye rebels, it just struck me as, how peculiar in this moment that that's the word he chooses to use. So they funnel us into a mall area, and she's watching the news footage on a television through one of the windows of one of the stores, and she realizes her daughter is one of the people that's been injured. So we are trying to find out where her daughter has been taken. The police are assuring us the medical tent has been closed down, everybody's been transported to hospitals. We finally get a message that said her daughter had been carried to Brigham and Women's Hospital. It's about 7 miles straight down this road. Somebody right next to us overheard us and said, "What happened? Her daughter's been injured, she needs to get to the hospital. We don't need to be running another 7 miles. He said, "My car's right here." At that moment, I took a picture of Carol's race number. She took a picture of mine. All I knew is she was Carol from Baltimore. All she knew is I was Stephen from Mississippi. That gentleman and his wife took her to the hospital, and from that point on, I was trying to just get out of downtown. So I start jogging toward the back bay, and I see a taxi cab, and I sprint toward the taxi cab. And I did not have a sprint in me, but I went as fast as I could over there. And the taxi guy said, "No, no, no, I've already got somebody." The guy in the back of the taxi said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Man, anywhere but here." He said, "I'm going to the airport." I said, "If you get me to the airport, at least I know I can get my flight home in the morning." And he lets me share his cab. And he makes sure that the cab drops me off there close to the airport. Flew into Pensacola, drove home, and Christy and Jace came home. And that's probably the best hug I've ever had in my life. The two people that were just closest to me at that time latching on, and it was, and especially, my 8-year-old kid, you hold him a little closer and kiss his head a little bit longer than maybe you would have. So the next morning, I didn't sleep. I'm watching the news coverage, and when I woke up, Christy said, asked if I slept. And I said, "Well, no, not really." She said, "Well, why don't you just stay home and get some rest?" I said, "No, students want to see me." They were really excited to know that I was okay, and I said, I've got to go. I've got to go to school. So I came to school, and a couple of teachers asked if they could bring their students in my classroom and just listen to me tell my story. And when I finished telling the story, I said, "Okay, well, does anybody have any questions?" And one student asked, "Well, what did you miss about 2013 that you did get to do in 2011? I said, "I missed my medal." I said, "In all the years that I've run, I've never not finished a race. I've never dropped out. I've never not gotten to the finish line. I've never not gotten my medal." Because that Boston medal means something. It means A, you got in, and B, you finished. The bell rang, class was concluded. So I walked out in the hall, and the students had lined the hallway. And they had gotten a piece of police tape, and they held it out across the hallway, and they said, "Come finish your race." And I ran down the hall, broke the tape, and I keep my medals on the wall in my classroom, and somebody had gotten my 2011 Boston medal and put it over my head. And when people ask why we teach, why we're in education, why would you do something that doesn't pay, that's the story that I offer to them. Kids still get it. Kids still understand what is important. I'll never forget Lou John Williams putting that medal over my neck, and those kids standing in the hallway, and Miss Howell, leading them on. That's the highlight of my racing career, and it wasn't even a race. After that happened, somebody said, "Well, are you going to go back next year and run?" And first response was, "Hell no." And as I talked to some friends of mine who were there, they said, "Oh, we've got to go back. We've got to show you can't be afraid to go live your life. You can't be afraid to put yourself out there." I can't speak for everybody else. I know there are people who don't want to get out there, but I'm not going to not live my life because somebody wants me to be afraid. I refuse to be afraid.